And hello again, dear ones. Dr. Robert with you over here.
Here.
And I'm Dr. David Alexander. Hello, everybody.
We've got a little bit of lag going on in the workings of the machine today, so please forgive us for that, folks. Welcome to New Thought Today. It is the end of October. It's almost Halloween. It's definitely the witching season, and we have a dear friend with us, Reverend Dr. David Alexander. Reverend Doctor, we usually get David. We usually get you on this program. I went back and looked at the archives, and it's about an average of every 5 to 6 months we have you on. We're a little overdue for you to share with us this year, because your last appearance was back in January of this year, and but you've been up to a lot. I know we're not trying to lay this on you by any means. You've been in the middle of a whole lot, and I'm sure everybody would love to hear a little bit about that. So for those that don't know you, say hello, and for those that do, what you've been up to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, first of all, that's entirely not frequently enough. So we'll rectify that. But good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm David Alexander. I am residing in Portland, Oregon now. Have been in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta for the last about almost 7 years, and wrapping up my responsibilities there in November, and have moved back to the great Pacific Northwest. My wife got a job that pays the bills and the benefits and the retirement and the pension and all the goodies that very rarely do we talk about in ministry, even in full-time ministry, which I've been blessed to do for 20 years. Prior to Atlanta, I was in Oregon here for 15 years. And so now I'm kind of freelancing, focusing on my Substack and on my book and teaching and showing up wherever I can. And in the midst of still unpacking boxes and putting mattresses in guest rooms and things like that right now. But happy to be here with you gentlemen today.
We're very, very grateful that you're here. When I heard the news that you were going to come back to the Portland area, I think I had like 7 different phone calls of people saying, "What's he going to do? Is he going to take back a church? What's he going to do?" And I'm like, give the man a chance to unpack first. Like, I got a feeling after quite a while in full-time ministry that the prospect of kicking back and enjoying your family perhaps a little bit and doing a little more writing than you had. Not that you don't do quite a bit of great writing already, but I would imagine the kicking back part is is enticing.
Absolutely. I walked my son to school every morning and walk in the afternoon to pick him up, and it's a real joy and treat. That was the first thing out of my wife's mouth when she got the job. She looked at me with tears in her eyes, and of course she was excited because she accomplished this great goal it was a 7-month process of her applying and all of this. And she said, "You can rest now." And so that was really her desire, was to take up that. I asked her and our kids to follow me in ministry and to go where I go, and they did that, and we're kind of switching roles now. So I'm grateful for it, and it's a good thing, and I'll always do ministry. I know, but I hear that too. Like, are you gonna like take over, like? And it's like this conquest thing. Like, how would I even do that? Like, come in and what, am I going to storm the castle? Like, I'm here. I'm going to take. It doesn't quite work that way, folks. But I'm going to keep teaching and showing up wherever I'm invited. So, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. As you said, it would be rather antithetical to everything you teach to flex your white male, supremacy and privilege to say, I'm back, get out of my way, here I come.
Right.
Perfect. Well, you mentioned your Substack, and I think that's where I think we'd both love to dig in a little bit more on that. Folks, if you're not aware, Dr. David writes a great Substack. It's called The Liberation Lens. I have the here we go. There's the link going across your screen for it. And you've been in the midst of writing a rather lengthy multi-part piece that also took a little bit of a hiatus in the middle as you moved from one coast to the other. But catch us up to speed a little bit on that and the series that you're writing on Substack.
Yeah, so just finished up a series called Prophets in the Pews. And it was really looking at, both within New Thought and outside of it more broadly, white moderate churches, liberal leaning, and our hesitancy to dig in and to speak up and do the hard work, the easy work of protesting, even like here in Portland in frog suits or whatever, when it becomes performative and kind of media sensationalized, those are the easy parts. But the hard work, the long term, the long range work of really digging in and what holds us back from that, and how do we find our moral courage, our moral voice, our prophetic voice, and really examining that from a New Thought and liberation lens. So my Substack is, of course, anchored in my New Thought upbringing, 40 plus years and 20 years of preaching and teaching. But it's also more broad than that. It's a liberation lens of liberation theology that is very much New Thought influenced, but I try to write in such a way that should somebody follow it that has no idea what New Thought is, they're able to keep up and hang in the conversation as well. So it's been a great series, and just really kind of examining, like I said, how do we step up and speak up in this moment? Because I don't know if a lot of my particularly melanin challenged colleagues and friends know that that this is the 11th hour. Like, this is all hands on deck moment. This is not just like, oh, it's election season and we need to, things are a little this is like 5 alarm fire bells rings going off. Like, I mean, the guy said it's not going to touch the building, and then tore down the entire east wing. Like, that's where we're at. No permits, no, just asbestos flying in the air around the area to the workers, and nobody can do anything about it. Like, we're at a very serious place, and we need to really kind of girdle up our loins, or whatever the phrase is, and tackle this. Should I keep going?
Yeah, when you talk about prophetic ministers and liberation theology, goes directly to James Cohen's whole liberation theology thing, who I've had the pleasure and honor of having personal conversations with him a couple of times. But when you go back, coming from the South, from a Black church experience where the church was the center of everything. Almost every neighborhood had a church that was right there, or just about right there, right? So it was a mission and support and fun and making a stand against things that were not right. When you look at most of those incidents, the ministers were the ones who were out front carrying the banner. Dr. King, obviously the poster person, right? Right? With the dogs and the Abernathy, you can go through his whole crew. And change is needed, and you're saying you are a spiritual leader as a part of a change agent, right? The whole thing of a spiritual religious church is to transform and change yourself, which means I need to change my environment, my thinking, which is what we focus on and make it. Now we've gotten into a complacent state, as you said earlier. We've divided into camps, however many you want, but it doesn't speak to holding. A lot of things go wrong.
Right, right. And so we really need to examine internally how we have this conversation with each other, and with our congregations or our communities, whatever those are. First of all, to back up even a little bit, to say that I think communities are really important, right? I am independent now. I don't have a church community. I plan on joining one locally and getting engaged and serving coffee and working with the kid, like whatever is needed, because I think that's really important. It's important for my family, but it's also important for all of us individually. We need each other. And, going into, we know like what's happening starting November 1st, no food stamps. Like our communities need to start rallying around and identifying, if they haven't already. This is kind of, if I had a voice to any ministers who are leading communities out there listening to this show, if you're not already doing this is what you need to be doing right now today. Identifying in your community who your doctors are, dentists, heart doctors, kidney doctors, all of them, right? Who are the doctors? Who are the teachers? Who are the nurse practitioners? Who are the gardeners, the cooks, etc. If you have land and you're not growing food, you need to be growing food on your land. If you have congregants who are growing land, you need to, consolidate those things. We need to be able to consolidate and create, as Reverend Z was speaking of there. Elzia, sorry, Reverend Z is somebody else I saw in the comments. But, we need to be able to create community as the Black church did in the 60s. The Black Panthers weren't a radical group. They were a group that was feeding children. Right. That was what was radical, right? And that was political only because the government was doing what it was doing, right? And they were protecting the right to vote for their community. That was radical because the government was trying to suppress their right to vote. So we need to start identifying those resources and preparing ourselves to be able to do those things. If they're not going to let us teach true American history in the schools and DEI and all of that, then we need to gather our kids after school in our churches and teach them. And that's exactly what the Black church did in the 60s. And we need to do it in a more broad way now in all of our communities, and not leave it to one group to do. Yeah.
No, that's spot on, because right now, I think for various number of reasons, everybody's mind is scattered 10 ways to Sunday.
Yeah.
Or my little level, but at a more global, starting community and going out level, that what's being put in place could be catastrophic. However, we know that there's one life, one intelligence that responds based on laws, and when we can come together to do that switch, the laws work. Anybody can come in my house right now, whether they paid the bill or not. Plan. So that's my shameless plug for a think tank, so that we can begin to look at what it means to be a community to take care of itself and everybody in it.
Right. And so in order to do that, we're going to have to get over some sacred cows, some areas that we have not wanted to go. In New Thought circles, we all on this panel know, we hear things like, oh, well, we don't do politics here, or we've got things that happen. We've got activism things. We build houses. We do food. We do these drives, which is all charitable work. which, by the way, I don't make a distinction between what is political and what is not, because it's all political. You wouldn't have to send people from your community to go build houses if the government was doing its job in housing. You wouldn't have to send volunteers to the food bank to volunteer at the food bank if the government was doing its job. And we're going to find that out starting next month, right? In a real big way. So it's all political. It's all political. I mean, it's all political. It's all political. Right. Like we just need to get over that. And this idea that, some of it's activism and it's being part of our faith and it's a feel good stuff. And it's, helping create a world that works for all. That's great if that's how you frame it, but understand that it's also political.
Yeah.
Right. There is no private space, this private wall that you get to build and say, I get to do that because it feels good and it's right and it's the right thing to do. But I don't do politics. I don't do it from the pulpit, or I don't teach people, or I don't whatever. No, it's all political. It's all political. And until we understand that, we're not going to make any headway. We're just going to be doing the performative charitable work, which I don't mean to dismiss. It's good work. It's important work. That work needs to happen. But at some point, we got to go upriver.
Yeah.
And find out why there's so many people that need to be pulled out of the river or fed or houses built for them or whatever the case may be. So, and what we discover if we do go upriver is that it's all consciousness, right? The only reason that any of those conditions exist is because there's a consciousness behind them that is producing them. And that consciousness is a construct of thinking of who's right and who's wrong, or who's deserving and who's not, or who's this or who's that. And we are the only ones on the planet that I know as a faith group that say that we understand the laws of consciousness. We understand how consciousness works and how to shift it and fix it. And so if we're not going upriver, then who is?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
If we're not going to the source, if we're not going to the root and saying, what is at the heart of this? How can we heal what is at the root of this thing? The people who understand what consciousness is aren't going to the root of the consciousness of the problem because it's too political. Are you kidding me? What? We are doomed if that's the case. Right.
I've been reflecting a lot lately on the
part of it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in, see, because I've been reflecting a lot lately on the old adage about the best time to plant a tree and the second best time to plant a tree, right? And I often wonder, has New Thought missed the boat in some ways by adhering to this no politics thing? And I'm almost 25 years into this philosophy now. You've got a bit more of that in your lifetime. Z, you've been around enough philosophies to know to see a whole range of all of this. And did we miss the boat by not being in the political arena sooner to say, this is how New Thought would address the issues of the day? And I've been trying to find where Ernest, or the founding fathers and sisters, and mothers, if you will, where they addressed things such as the Vietnam era and World War II and other places in history and other things. And it's not easy to find that, which leads me to, wow, we could have been influencing the thought of what is inescapably a part of our lives, our humanness, in politics for a very, very long time. And we still seem to be afraid to talk about it. And the house is literally being torn down around us as it happens.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And examining that there are places where, Ernest talked about, the Korean War and the things of that nature. But you're right. It's rare to find some of those examples. And part of what that research, I think, will lead us to discover is that, one, we're part of a larger ecosystem of just white liberal religious thought, in which most of white Protestant Christianity, which heavily influenced the development of New Thought, has these ideas that are aspects of what I would call slaveholder religion, right? This idea that the church is a neutral zone that stays out of politics. That is a very new 20th century idea that is predominantly white Protestant Christianity. Nowhere else does religion or even Christianity hold that viewpoint. Nowhere else. It's always political. It's always speaking up for the marginalized. It's always speaking up for the disenfranchised. It's always representing God's voice to bridge the gap and to do what's right, to bring justice and wholeness to the earth. Like this idea that is to be quiet and meek and let people think for themselves and stay out of it. And let's just be a nice place that everybody can gather on Sunday and we just won't address it. Like, what? That is a very starting around World War II, very white Protestant idea that New Thought got caught up in. We didn't invent it, but we got caught up in it. And it's not the essence of who we are. Not even New Thought. If you go pre that era, we find the early women in New Thought were very political and very active. And so that's part of it, is that we need to kind of arrest ourselves from this idea, this value that we picked up that is really not a good value to carry forward. I would say, just to say it, boldly like that, and then this other idea, which is that we've turned into like a theology piece for New Thought, which is that we teach people, how to think, not what to think, right? Which I'm sure we would all agree with here on this panel. I'm sure any of my colleagues, would jump on here and say, yeah, that's the line. And I agree with that. Yes, we do. We teach people how consciousness works. So therefore we teach people how to think. But that doesn't mean that I can't share with you, although I don't teach you what to think, I can tell you what I think. Right? I can share what I think. It is okay for me to say, I think that's wrong, or I think that's right, or I think this is good, or, whatever. And I don't think that my congregants now or in the past are so fragile that if I share with them my opinion, they will lose their capacity to start thinking, to keep thinking for themselves. I don't think they're that fragile. I believe in them a little bit more than that. I think that they know both how to think and what to think, and that maybe what we've missed is not that our emphasis should be on teaching how to think, but on teaching how to hear, teaching how to listen, because it's okay to be in a church where the minister says something that you might not agree with. You don't have to leave the church. You don't have to go find another church. They can share their opinion and you'll be okay. You can even have a contrary opinion and still go to that church every week. That's fine, right? If you know how to hear. And so maybe that's the thing we've missed, is we've focused too much on teaching how to think and not how to listen.
And I agree with that, but I would add to that, we have forgotten how to be the observer. The observer is more than our hearing, seeing, all of that. The biggest sensory organ on us is our skin. It's picking up thousands of pieces of information right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And because we've taken a system, an ancient system that is one. You start messing with the balance, it goes out. And that's what we're doing. We're messing with the balance of a system of life, an ancient teaching that says, if you don't keep it in balance, if you're riding a bike, guess what? You're going to fall off the bike, right? And you got to get up and start again. And that's how we have to begin to look at life. The ancient ones, as we have say our tradition is based on, was based on wisdom, that somebody watched it. Think how long it took for somebody to observe, or some community to observe, the Hale-Bopp comet that comes around every, like clockwork, whatever the years is, I forget. Mm-hmm. Somebody was observing for they had to see it at least twice to know it happened, and 3 times to make for real. And we've lost that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's really, and because that observer is all of those senses coming together, and again, listening. That's I'd say listening, not just ear listening, but spiritually listening, deeply observing and taking it in. And so, like the way I've said it is that from the pulpit, for example, if what I've shared, upsets your political disposition, then take it up with your political disposition. Don't take it up with me, right? Like observe, like be the observer. Be like, oh, the minister said something today, and like it rattled me in some kind of way, about what I think or how I view the world or the news source that I have or whatever, right? Like be the observer and look at that and examine that and be like, well, what is that about? Instead of, I can't believe these days the ministers are just going, right? Like you're not observing when you're doing that, you're reacting. And so I thought this minister was supposed to teach you how to think. So how to think is to observe, right? Like be aware of, I've got a reaction here. That's interesting. Let me go pray and meditate about that.
I'm kind of thinking I almost prefer the reaction that says I argue with you than I prefer the reaction. Oh, that was real nice, Rev. Thanks. Yeah, they just keep walking by. You got no idea if they heard anything you said or not.
Right.
But this is, I think, really an important conversation that we have, and people understand there is the permission to think for ourselves, to be able to question the people in authority, whether it's a minister, whether it's a politician, but also to recognize that, it is all politics. And we rely on the observer effect for a lot of the validity of our theology. I'm thinking there is a little call here to buoy up, if you will, or to call people back to, let's get into that observer effect, that observer consciousness, both what we see, what we feel, what we hear, how we intuit, what's floating in, and what's kind of like slapping us on the backside of the head saying, come on, it's time to start paying attention a little bit more here. So
my favorite practice of that real quick is, I learned as a teen in this teaching is to, like, especially when things are chaotic. So now is a perfect time, right? Especially when things are chaotic and just don't make any sense at all, is to look at it and then go, okay, given that God is all that there is, I wonder what's trying to happen here. And just sit back and be with that, right? Okay. So yeah, this is happening and that's happening. It's all chaotic and it's like, well, given, you can say, given that God is all there is, given that spirit is all there is, given that there's only one thing happening in the universe, it's just spirit expressing itself. And it sure looks like a big hot mess. So I wonder what is actually trying to happen here.
Yeah.
And then just start observing and see what, comes up. So I interrupt you there.
No worries. All good. Folks, we do need to take a quick break. Let a couple of our sponsors and friends say hello, let you learn a little bit more about what's happening here on the New Thought Media Network. But we're going to be right back after these messages with more with Reverend Dr. David Alexander here on New Thought Today. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Are you passionate about media, storytelling, and making a difference? Welcome to New Thought Media Network, where your voice matters. We amplify diverse voices and share impactful stories. Join us in our mission. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to creativity and community, looking for enthusiastic volunteers who want to be part of something bigger, learn, grow, and collaborate in various aspects of media production. Incredible support and camaraderie await you here. Your contributions will help us create powerful content that resonates with audiences and drives social change.
Ready to make a difference? Visit our website, www.ntmedia.org, to learn more about volunteer opportunities and how you can get involved.
Find our volunteer inquiry under the Engage tab on our website. or visit www.ntmedia.org/volunteer. We look forward to connecting with you soon.
And we're back with more of New Thought today here on the New Thought Media Network. Our guest, Reverend Dr. David Alexander. We have been having a great conversation. It has led us to this point of remembering that we want to be in that observer effect. So, Dr. David, I'd love to kind of kick this piece off with you. I recently wrote a Substack article that also speaks to some of this. It was originally called "Why We Don't Allow Nazis in the Pulpit." I eventually softened the title a little bit to "The Mic Belongs." Yeah, just a little.
Okay.
So it was published under the name of "The Mic Belongs to Love." And in light of what we've seen with the No Kings uprisings, and I've in a group of people that we're calling that an uprising in consciousness.
Yeah.
What's happening in our streets right now, and with various titles of an uprising. But this piece was really about how I see New Thought being attacked for not being inclusive enough, because people that have a bit perspective of hate don't really feel welcome any longer.
Sure.
They can't hide their prejudices, and they can't hide for their MAGA enrollment or their MAGA alignment, and feel like they're being called out by New Thought and New Thought communities. When I want to hear a little, the mic belongs to love, and we don't allow Nazis in the pulpit. And I would love to hear some of what you've been observing around this uprising in consciousness, but also the pushback that uprising might be seeing.
Yeah, for sure, that pushback is there. I mean, when I went to Atlanta, I thought, oh gosh, I can kind of take the gloves off and really talk about, justice, consciousness, and the intersection between liberation theology and New Thought, which I did, for 7 years. And we started by creating this workbook called Recovery from the Lie of Whiteness. Turns out that might have been a bit much. But let's just get right to the intersection of this thing, right? And talk about consciousness. And and there were, of course, a lot of white people that were like, I can't believe you're doing that. And to the point that we were making earlier about the observer effect, it's like, well, you might want to look at that. The fact that you're having a reaction to that, maybe you should get a copy and see what we have to say. Because I wrote it with our African-American practitioners and an expert in 12-step and whatnot. And you can get that at thelieofwhiteness.com. It's still out there. You can get it in PDF or from Amazon. And so what I would say is, in terms of the pushback, you can stay. I did my whole ministry in Atlanta was on, our theme was You Belong. And we did classes on it, which you can find at newthoughteducation.com. And this idea of belonging, especially in spiritual community, doesn't mean agreement. It doesn't mean belonging to spiritual community. It doesn't mean you agree with everything the minister says, or that you agree with every person who attends. In fact, you talk about inclusivity. My friend and mentor, Bishop Yvette Flunder, she used to say, and she probably still does say, about this. She says, if you look around on Sunday and there's not somebody in your community if there's not somebody in your community that makes you feel uncomfortable, then you're not doing it right. Right? In terms of inclusivity. If you're cool, like everybody, yep, they all look like me, they all dress like me, they all sing like me, they all carry a note just like me, they all vote just like me, then you're not doing it right. There should be somebody there that, it feels included because of your message of belonging, but doesn't necessarily go along with everything that you say or think or do, and that's okay. So I think we have to get back to that idea that as Dr. King warned us, right, that spiritual communities have basically become social clubs. They become these spaces of agreement that we all just get along. And no, you get to belong and have whatever your beliefs are, but you're going to have to examine them. Right. So the pushback isn't really about, we make it about the messenger. We say, oh, the minister, or oh, the teaching, or oh, the movement. We make it up that the organization, oh, the magazine shouldn't be doing this. Oh, the headquarters shouldn't be doing that because the message has gotten too far away from this, that, or the other. No, it's expressing whatever it's expressing in this particular moment. And you get to examine what's going on for you. What's happening here with you in relationship to that, because you belong. You belong in this movement. You're in it. You belong to this moment. And so belonging is relational. And so if I belong, then I have a relationship with. And that means I constantly have to examine what's going on in that relationship. And there are times in relationship where we don't always feel welcome, but we still belong. We don't always feel good about what's happening, but we belong. And when those moments are occurring, it's not because the other person is wrong. It's because the relationship is trying to grow us. Right? It's because there's something is changing and evolving within me. And so that's what I would say to that pushback is that, hey, yeah, if it's MAGA or whatever, yeah, you are going to feel. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that because for me, that was an explanation of what we say we are, a community. A community works on all fronts, as you said earlier, right? And I think a lot of us have really forgotten the real meaning of what politics is, and that is the activities and ideas and processes of taking care of the people. That's at the essence. Now they don't put some fancy words on it, but that is the essence. Politics is the ideas of how do we come up with activities and everything to keep balance so that we don't get too far, because we know if we get out of balance, we fall. That's a whole nother conversation. But one thing that's missing, we don't have, I believe, again, I got a couple of sacred cows. I would hope I don't have to throw these out. In that rites of passage programs, when you look at indigenous communities that have left marks of greatness for thousands of years, there were rites of passage programs to help people understand where you fit into the community to keep this movement, whatever it was. And we've lost that. As you said, we've gotten individual and nobody wants to be rattled. You talk about we need to be rattled. That causes us to evolve and grow. Steady state is dead. And if that's what people are looking for, that's fine. But I'm not looking for that yet.
Right.
And so I'm right in line with what you're saying. I think it's spot on.
Right. Part of the rites of passage thing is like tonight you go out in the wilderness and make it on your own, right? and you still belong. The community's right here. We'll come get you if you really need it, but we're going to send you out there and get you scared a little bit, right? You're going to figure it out. And so again, that's community. That we all belong to this thing called sacred community, and we need to grow up with each other and for each other, right? It's calling us to evolve. Again, given that God is all that there is, I wonder what's trying to happen here. So if I am, because you brought the example in, MAGA, if I'm a MAGA believer and I go to a New Thought church, which might sound outrageous to me personally, but it happens, right? And again, because the basic sort of separate from MAGA, but the basic Republican notion of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps has been a very popular New Thought idea for a long time. That individualism of your mindset and self-determination and all of that, so that we find Republican ideology and therefore believers within New Thought communities perfectly logical and has been that way for decades. And that might sound shocking to liberals in this particular climate. But so the fact is that most of our communities have both if they've been around a long time. So again, if I find myself on any of those ideologies, but in the one that we feel like is maybe being attacked right now, I can belong, but I'm going to have to examine, given that God is all there is, I wonder what's trying to happen here. Why do I feel so uncomfortable? Why do I feel called out? What in me, who am I beyond this ideology, right? Well, politics is, as we've been talking this whole hour, is very, very important, but we are bigger than our politics, right?
Yep.
Our ideology is very, very important, but we're bigger than our ideology. Ultimately, we are spirit. And so what's trying to happen here through those things? I'm not trying to alienate those things or say they're not important. They're obviously very important, but because they're avenues of expression that we're trying to work some things out. But given that we are even bigger than that, what's going to happen in the midst of that, right? So these are, I love the way C.S. Lewis says it. I think I included this in my last blog on that series. He says, I pulled it up over here, so I'm looking over here. It says, the load or the weight or the burden, the load, the weight or the burden of my neighbor's glory should be laid upon my back, a load so heavy that only humility can carry it. And then the backs of the proud will be broken. Right? Like the load of creating a world that works for everyone, the load of my neighbor's, I love the way he says it, my neighbor's glory, not my glory, my neighbor's glory, right? That they prosper, that they succeed, that they have everything that they need. Not that I'm responsible for that, but I belong to that, right? I can't go to work for them. I can't earn their paycheck or make the choices that they need to make. But I am connected to it in a way that there are things about my life that influence the environment in which they do go to work, right? In which they do make the choices that they need to make. So that load is on my back in such a way that only humility can carry it.
That's like the old charge that says, it reminds me of that statement, that says you can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But that's not your charge. Your charge is to create a thirst so that he wants to drink. And that's what we have to do with this teaching. We have to be able to be exemplary in all aspects of life, wholeness, once again, and we're doing things on all these fronts, and people are looking and saying, how the heck are you doing that? There's something that that I don't, that I would love to be involved in. I would love to get involved in. And I tell my budding congregation, I can sit up here and talk forever. Trust me. But if you don't go and do something, none of this means anything. And when we get into that idea of being servants as ministers, we are serving to be examples of what life could be, might be, should be. But there are some steps in this this evolution of life that has to take place. My seed must be put in the ground, in the darkness, under the dirt, with some pressure, or it's not going to grow.
Yeah, beautiful.
Would appear our dear brother Raymond Anderson is with us. Good to see you, Doctor. Glad you're here. And Dr. David, you were just saying it, and it really brings me to that because it's part of what we love to do here on this show. Ponder, or if you will, reckon on what is it that's going on? What is God bringing forth in the midst of all of this? And also in the spirit of not teaching us what to think, I think we would love to have you teach us what you think a little bit around where is what is the great call of New Thought right now? Where is New Thought headed? What's the vision that maybe some are aware of and some maybe are still trying to search for, that is the great promise that New Thought is taking us towards?
That's such a great question. You asked earlier, has New Thought missed the boat by not being a part of this conversation, engaged in this? And the answer is, I think, as I see it, my hit on that question is yes and no. Certainly, in many ways, we lag where collective conversation and justice circles and religious movements are talking about the importance of and the engagement, and we're struggling with, should we be having the conversation, right? So I think we know that. But the no part, in terms of no, we haven't missed the boat, as our sort of our saving grace, our safety valve in that question, if you will, is that it's still all just consciousness. It's still all of this, all of the drama, all of the stuff happening with the administration, all of the stuff happening all over the world, all the things, right? It's still all just consciousness. And Ernest Holmes taught us that what the mind can do, the mind can undo, right? It's all just the outplaying of our individualized, but one consciousness moving through all of us, playing out. And because we know the laws of consciousness, because we're trained in the laws of consciousness, what mind can do, mind can undo. What has been created can shift. And so we are still very much at the center point of this thing. So yet in many ways we missed the boat, for sure. I would never try to characterize it otherwise. And yet at the same time, we are still right at the apex of where the shift needs to take place, if that makes sense, right? Because of what we teach. Now, if we're ignorant about what we teach, and I mean that in the literal sense, right? If we're not applying what we teach, then we continue to miss the boat. But if we really grab on to the essence of this whole philosophy, this whole teaching, then we will find ourselves right at the tip of the spear of where we need to go as a planet, as a people, as a species, as everything. And so what's trying to happen in New Thought? We're trying to get ourselves together so we can do that. I know there's some shifts and moves happening in Unity. There's some shifts and moves happening in CSL and all of that. Today we are praying with our UFBL brothers and sisters and everything, the storms that are hitting Jamaica right now. I think that there is a bigger playground for all of us that is beyond our. Don't take what I'm saying to mean merger. I don't mean that, but I think there's a bigger playground for all of us to play together, to work together, to cooperate together, and to row in the same direction for humanity's sake. And that when we can do that, and we can find the forms and structures, maybe organizational structures, I dare not say governance structures, but organizational structures that can support that, then, I think we will really begin to make some headway. But it's going to cause us to challenge and get over our littleness, our little fiefdomness, our little our little towers of identity, like come out of the tower and come into the bigger playground. That's what I think.
Beautiful. Yes. Well said. And I agree with you, right? We don't, it's too easy for some to rush to the idea that, collaboration means somebody's taking somebody over. Cooperation means there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. And it's that type of separation that, is at the heart of what I think we're all here to heal. Is that sense of separation. And for some that may be watching, you may or may not have heard of the new initiative known as an Awakened Path, which is nothing more really than a conversation at this point, but that was brought forward in a way. And I've had people again, reaching out to me and saying, is Unity taking over CSL? Is CSL no, we all just recognize we play in the same sandbox and we are one. So let's act like it.
Right. Yeah. Let's try that. Let's try applying the principles and see what happens.
See what happens.
And you know, the perfect example of that is the human body itself. We have all these systems, all these organs that reside in us, this divine selfhood. And if they don't play together, they call it dis-ease.
Right.
And when you get dis-ease, all kinds of things happen. So, I mean, we have to use the teaching, which is understanding and observing nature. Ernest used the perfect seed soil plant for this whole teaching, and it teaches volumes. I'm doing a class now on this thing called you. And when we understand, as you were saying earlier, that we are a conscious thing in the, and when we use it, it works. That's what Ernest said.
That's it. That's it.
Yes. Folks, we need to take another real quick break and let our sponsors, organizational sponsors and individual donors, give them a little gratitude and recognition, as well as see, I need another sip of water. I know that for sure. We're going to be back in about 1 minute and 27 seconds. Stay with us. We've got our final thoughts coming up right after the break. Be back in a minute. Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring. And we're back with more of New Thought today here on the New Thought Media Network. If by chance you're just tuning in or catching us on the replay, our guest has been Reverend Dr. David Alexander, and what a great conversation we've had today. It's always inspiring, sir, and always fun. And you said it at the top of the hour that once every 6 months is nowhere near soon enough, so often enough. So we're going to work on that.
I look forward to it. I'm available. What can I say?
The man is available. All right. So, folks, thanks for watching. We're going to be back next week. But before we wrap up, we want to do our final thoughts like we do every week. We'll give this over to Rev Elzia and let him get us started with our final thoughts.
Yeah, I think, I appreciate this conversation so much, David, because it's, it hits me in a heart spot that says there is oneness in the universe. And my final thoughts is just that. There is oneness in the universe. And as it says in the Bible, and one of Ernest's favorite saying, a house divided against itself cannot stand. Let's come together as a community and figure this out. We have the consciousness to do it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Dr. David.
I'm going to go back to, because I think it's worthy of repeating, I'm going to go back to CS and say that, the load, the burden, the weight of my neighbor's glory, let that be on my back in such a way that only humility can carry it. And then I think he says all the backs of the proud will be broken, right? All of the ways in which pride about our organizations or our this or our political affiliation or our identities or whatever's are keeping us back from really carrying the load of the work of creating a world that works for all, for each other. Let that pride be broken, and let us lean into each other. If we don't decide to initiate that through our own spiritual initiative, then Spirit has a way to break our back for us, right? And I think we're seeing some of that playing out right now in the collective. So let us just be mindful of who the audience is. The audience isn't who's already made up their mind or who already has their opinion, but rather who's the marginalized, who's the one who's listening for what it is that you have to say and what you're doing. Let's show up in that way, and I think we'll find a better world on the other side.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir. Thank you. For me, I have found two pieces in this that really strike home, and will probably find its way into one of my Substacks coming up. It is all politics, and politics is all about people. And I think sometimes we lose sight of the people in that equation. I see it on social media and other places. We lose sight of the fact that this is really about people at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so I want to keep that focus on the people. How do we keep the focus? Yeah, politics is everywhere because people are everywhere. So the people.
Amen.
Yeah. Folks, thanks for watching. This is New Thought Today on the New Thought Media Network. We're with you every Tuesday afternoon at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. We invite you to head on over to our website, ntmedia.org, and click on the donate button if you found some value here. Like, share, and subscribe with your friends, and we'll be back again. Dr. David, I would send people. Well, we're going to send people to your Substack right now because we don't have a church for them to go to, but that's okay. Welcome to the world of Church Without Walls.
Yes, indeed.
Check out Dr. David's Liberation Lens at revdalexander.substack.com. And if you need help finding that, well, let us know. We'll get you a link, a direct link. Until next time, we want to wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.